Welcome to the Onion Buns. So this week I'm got a special video for you. I had a cat, Furball. Miss him greatly. He passed away in 2018. This would have been his birthday month. I don't know. I don't remember exactly what day it was in March, but March was his month when he was born. So to properly tell you about Furball, I got to tell you a little bit about myself. Okay, I'm not telling you this for sympathy or empathy or, oh, I'm so sorry, or any of that stuff. This is just the timeline on how it came to happen. So as some people know, I have a horrible disability. I have a disease called ankylosing spondylitis. It's a hereditary spinal disease. There's a lot to it, but in very layman terms, in the most simplistic way, basically think rheumatoid arthritis of the spinal cord. Okay, it's a lot more than that, but most people, you talk about inflammation and muscle spasms and blah, 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 blah. Just think very severe rheumatoid arthritis in the spinal cord into the neck. Okay, so I was diagnosed with this in the early 90s, but it affected me. It did affect me, but it was a gradual decline. So I was very active in my younger days. Like when I was 20 years old, I almost trained as a professional pro wrestler at the world famous Hart Dungeon in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. I received the invite to go train there. I played hockey, I played tennis, I played golf, I worked 3 jobs and went to night school for computer programming. So basically what I'm saying is I led a very, very active lifestyle. Okay, and over the years the disease just slowly robbed me of that ability to be active. So by the time I hit age 40, the bottom fell out. I couldn't work anymore. I barely walk at the time. I also need to get a new hip, so that didn't help matters. But I went into a deep depression. I was feeling sorry for myself, self-pity, and self-pity's a horrible fucking thing. It really is. I was always very, very in shape. Back then, when I was 40, I think I was around the 210, 220 mark with almost no body fat on me. By the time I was 42, I was 270 pounds. So yeah, I was at my all-time lowest, and things were not looking good. And my mother looked at me and she said, well, why don't you get a cat? You like cats. And I thought about it and I said, that's not a bad idea. So I went to the local PetSmart, and in Canada, we outlawed puppy mills and kitten mills and all that quite a while ago. So pet stores couldn't sell you a cat or a dog. What they did is they would volunteer to set aside space for rescues to put their cats on display, and hopefully people would adopt them. So that's what happened. Is I went to the local PetSmart, and as it turned out this day, the volunteer for that specific rescue never showed up. So the cats were locked inside this glass room in their cages, but you couldn't get into the glass room because the doors were locked. So while PetSmart was contacting the rescue to get somebody there to unlock the doors so I could do the adoption, I was looking through the glass, and there was this tiny little orange cat, and it honestly looked pitiful. It was just this tiny little thing, and it was bawling, or at least I thought it was bawling. Like, I thought it was crying. That's what it looked like through the glass. Okay, so the volunteer finally showed up. We got Furball to me. It was named Bonaparte, which a horrible name, so I renamed him Furball, and adopted him. And I took him home and I cleaned him up and blah blah blah. But turns out he wasn't crying. Well, he was, but it wasn't out of the sadness that I thought it was. He was crying because he was infected with feline herpes syndrome. The rescue had taken this, I guess it would have been a 5-month-old cat at the time, put it into a cage with a adult cat who was infected with feline herpes syndrome, and the adult cat infected Furball. So what I was seeing coming out of his eyes actually wasn't tears, it was this disgusting black goo coming out of his eyes. And I'd clean it off, but a couple hours later it'd be right back there. So the rescue never said boo about this to me or anything, so I contacted my vet. I booked up an appointment, and 3-4 days later, I forget exactly how long, I took Furball in for his first appointment. Turns out he had feline herpes syndrome, and turns out the rescue knew about it. They had taken Furball to the same vet to be diagnosed. They had just hidden the disease in the hopes of getting the adoption. This rescue, I didn't know anything about this rescue, but I wasn't surprised when I heard a couple of years later the rescue was being shut down and they were being charged with animal cruelty, and all the cats that weren't being forced to being euthanized because they were sick were being given to other rescues to be placed through them. It was clear this rescue was in it for the money, not for the animals. And if you're opening a rescue, you got to be in it for the animals and only the animals. So I had Furball, and I called up this rescue and I gave him a piece of my mind, which, if anyone knows me, knows exactly how much vulgarity was stringed together when talking to them. And the assholes actually said, "Oh, well, if you don't want that cat, we can give you a different cat. You can just exchange it." Oh, I was angry. I'd had Furball for 3 or 4 days. I'd been taking care of him. We had bonded. From the second Furball got in my home, I was his human. He followed me everywhere. If I went into the backyard, he sat at the screen door of the back patio door complaining that he wasn't out there with me. So there was no chance in hell I was giving up this cat. So I told them where to go and got the medication from the vet, and Furball and I started out. Now, it's no stretch of a lie or exaggeration to say we saved each other's lives. I was depressed, I was miserable, and it wasn't looking good for me. As I said, self-pity is not a good look on anyone. And Furball was a 6-month-old cat with a horrible disease who didn't even know how to clean himself when I got him. Most cats learn from their mothers how to lick and clean themselves. He never did. So when I would bathe him, and I had to bathe him once a week for the first year because of this. I would bathe him, wash him, shampoo him, dry him off, but I'd leave just enough water on him that he would have to lick it off, and this would, by osmosis, train him how to clean himself. And it worked. It did work. It took a while, but it did work. But it was funny too, because he didn't like the baths. No cats likes baths. They're not dogs. But he didn't hate them either. I fully believe to this day that Furball loved being clean. And he just didn't know how to clean himself. And he wasn't a fan of water, but he recognized soon enough that the water meant he would be feeling clean and he'd be feeling better. So, like any cat, he had to put his own stamp on this. So I would wash him, I'd dry him, and I'd leave a little bit of water on him so that he would dry himself, but he wouldn't. Instead, he would follow me around the house. Now, it didn't matter if it took 1 minute or it took 10 minutes. He would follow me around. The minute I sat down, he'd instantly jump into my lap, and that's when he would start to clean himself, absolutely soaking me. And he did this every single week. Basically, he was saying, if you're going to bathe me, you're getting one too. And it just made me laugh. You got to appreciate the irony of it. You really do. So yeah, so Furball and I spent the first year together, basically saving each other. He got me to stop feeling sorry for myself, stop focusing on myself, stop feeling pity for myself, and I got him healthy, or as healthy as he was ever going to be. Most vets said because of the disease, he would never live past 8.5 to 10 years old. That's just what his life expectancy was because of this disease. So I was determined to give him the best 8 to 10 years I could. And then a true miracle did happen. After a year, I took him in for his yearly checkup, which I do for all my cats. And the vet announced to me that he was no longer contagious. Now, don't mistake, he still had the disease and would always have the disease. That was never going to change. But he was no longer contagious to other cats. So if I wanted to get him a companion, I could without worrying about infecting the companion. So, well, that was music to my ears because, like, even though I was home all the time, you still want a cat. I'm a firm believer that cats are social creatures. You don't have one. You always have two or more. So, I found out a vet in the area had another 6-month-old cat for adoption. I went down there. I met a cat named Randy, which is another horrible name, and I renamed it Rascal and adopted him. But I'll do a different video on Rascal because that'll probably be like 30 minutes of me telling you stories about what this little idiot got into and did. It's the stuff he pulled makes you think of Marmaduke or Marley. If you ever watched Marley and Me, which I highly suggest people watch, Marley was absolutely hilarious, and so was Rascal. It just, they had the personality that, they were going to be the center of attention, and if they weren't the center of attention, they were going to make sure they were the center of attention. So I got Rascal, and Furball and Rascal, they bonded instantly. Usually when you introduce a cat to another cat, you have to put the new cat into what I call a cat room. I learned this from Jackson Galaxy. You put them in there and you let the two cats get used to each other's scent through the door. Then you open the door a slight bit so they can see each other but can't reach each other, and it usually goes through a bunch of hissing and growling, and eventually they come to accept each other. Well, not with Furball and Rascal. They bonded instantly. The minute they saw each other, Furball was over cleaning Rascal. It was just like, done. You're my brother. That's it. And they were inseparable for the rest of their lives. Furball lived to be 14 and a half years old. So he made a liar of all those vets that said he was only going to live 8 to 10 years. He made it to 14 and a half. The average age of a healthy indoor cat is 15 years. Furball was not healthy, and he made it to 14 and a half. He had a will to survive, and he loved his life. Like, there's no other way to put it. He loved his life. When I would go to Edmonton to visit my brother, because I was living out east when I got him, I'd come to Edmonton to visit my brother and some friends, and I would leave Furball and Rascal at my home in Ontario. When I come back, I wasn't allowed to sleep for the first night. They were not allowed. They were so happy I was back home, they would not allow me to sleep. They were just all over me, meowing, rubbing up against, all just pure affection. And that's how Furball lived his life for his entire life. And I was determined to make sure that he had the best life possible. And I think I did. Sadly, at 14 and a half, I woke up one morning. I had moved back to Edmonton and brought Furball and Rascal with me, and I woke up and Furball was on the floor next to my bed, and I reached down and I petted him and I scooped him up to pick him up, and he let out just a horrific scream of agony. And I placed him on the bed, and I ran downstairs and I got the crate, and I came upstairs and I gently put him into the crate, and I got him into the vehicle, and I called the vet and said I'm on my way. And I started driving like batshit over to the vet, and Furball sadly passed away next to me about 2 blocks away from the vet. But like I said, I'm not really that sad about it, because I know he had a great life. He was happy, he was content, he was loved by me and by Rascal. And he proved all the doubters wrong. He lived to 14 and a half years old. You know, I really can't stress how amazing that is. Like, not a single vet I saw when I picked him up, and I saw a few different ones, said he was going to survive past 10 years. Most said between 8 and 10. Nobody thought past 10. And he went 4.5 years after that. So, you know, he had a great life and everything. So while I've been talking here, I've been showing you pictures of Furball. And after the video, I'm going to show a few more pictures, so let the video run. But that's that's my story of Furball. He was the perfect cat at the perfect time, and I'll always be thankful for him. I hope everybody that has a pet can have a pet as loyal as Furball was. He was the perfect pet. He may not have had the biggest personality, that would be Rascal. He may not have come from the street, that would be Faff. He may not have had trauma, being fearful of other cats, that would be TK. He may not have the loudest purr I'd ever heard, that would be Motor. But he was the perfect cat. And yeah, I had him for 14 and a half years, and I'm thankful every day that I did. So that's the end of my Furball story. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it showed how much appreciation I really do have for that little guy. So thanks for watching my video. If you liked the video, leave a like and subscribe. If you didn't like the video, leave a dislike. Always feel free to leave a comment. I don't swing my cane that strongly if I dislike your comment. And as always, pew pew and shit. And again, I'll be posting a whole bunch of pictures at the end of this video, so if you want to see some more pictures that I have of Furball, just keep the video running and you'll see the pictures. Thanks for watching.